Think to yourself, have you ever felt like you've been close to a group of people or friends, but yet feel so different from one another? Well, maybe perhaps. This is the reason because all individuals have different beliefs, cultures, or even traditions from one another. But what could play into this role? Well, maybe perhaps physical barriers such as mountains, or even hills or oceans, or maybe just not having enough experience of understanding one another. Well, what place could be one of this? Well, for me, Hawaii. Hawaii is an island that is isolated from the world for a couple centuries and was once forgotten. According to Melissa Adams at Penn State University, she stated that the cultural difference came from being isolated in Hawaii. That's the issue, the isolation. Well, how different can it be when it comes to religion, tradition, and even culture? Well, it's important to know how Hawaii came to be. According to Hawaii Islands and the History.com, the island was created with volcanic activity, more known as hotspots. Hotspots is just magma underground, such as coming from the ocean floor, that just built up over time and created the Hawaiian Islands, such as the mainland Hawaiian Islands, Maui, and many more right here. Well, who was first to settle here? Well, it was the Polynesians about 1,500 years ago from the Marquise Islands about 2,000 years ago. So, the thing is that these Polynesians were actually kind of just left here on Hawaii and pretty much left here to bring their own societies and have their own cultures from the Marquise Islands. So, as time went on, they were forgotten, and this one European captain named Captain Hook rediscovered the items again, and pretty much started everything up again for the islands. But he wasn't very important. He wasn't very important just for the discovery of it again. And then, as time goes on, the United States annexed Hawaii in 1898, and then finally admitted it as a state in 1959. Okay, but there's one thing to notice since we talked about the isolation in Hawaii. The reason this is important is because Hawaii is known for its natural beauty and pretty much its isolation from one another because they don't have like Costco or Walmart or anything big like that. It's more natural and beauty, and that's why people love it as a vacation place. For example, it's mountains and it's waters and it's beautiful skies. And then another picture to present it. But how does this contribute to the traditions of Hawaii? Okay. So the traditions and culture in Hawaii are very competitive, but also enjoyable there. So, for example, Hula Festival. The Hula Festival is a thing that's spent annually, and it basically honors the previous kings and any goddess that they used to celebrate back then and honor. They would do this by hula dancing, and hula dancing is very crucial to the Hawaiian culture what they enjoy. It's so important to them that even they have schools for it, and they also compete very much that each year they crown someone for the best dancer. And also, they have surfing. Surfing was actually created in Hawaii, and it used to show dominance over other men to show who was better and who should be a leader back then. But now it's just shown as a sport to play and enjoy while being there. But it's still taken not very lightly, but less lightly. Okay, well, those are the traditions and culture, but that's not the only important thing if you want to know about Hawaii. There's also the etiquette when visiting there, and also things to acknowledge if you ever visit. First off, to be accustomed to Hawaii, you need etiquette. So here we have leis. Lasers accustomed to Hawaii, and it's more specifically to greet one another. And if you receive one, you're prompt to either bow to one another or even receive a kiss on the cheek when you receive it. So these can be made out of flower petals, leaves, feathers, and bones and nuts, and etc. So, also another etiquette would be taking off your shoes when you're entering a house of one another. Hawaii is known for its nice reputation compared to other countries, and it's just they adapted this taking the shoes off before entering house from the Japanese and Chinese from that descend from there and passed on their own culture to Hawaii. So it's basically there to know that you need to take off your shoes. Okay. So before we get to that, make sure that you respect their beliefs and understand that some of the things like their hula dances shouldn't be taken as a joke, and that we should all respect their own culture. Let's say if you are participating in hula dance, don't goof off, still enjoy it, but make sure you're not hurting your own reputation as people seeing you. And lastly, also respect the elders there. In Hawaii, it's always good to be respectful of others. If you see someone about to enter a door, open a door, or even perhaps just let them have your seat. So, to wrap it up, I have my conclusion. So, we talked about the origin of the history of Hawaii and even reasons why we're different due to the isolation of how they are able to keep their own culture there compared to other people just coming in and taking over, you know? And then also, we talked about the traditions and culture and also etiquettes that we should acknowledge while visiting there. And lastly, hopefully I showed you that it's beauty of Hawaii. And that's what I've listed right here. So, if you have any questions, just email me at brianliao@my.lonestar.edu. It is right here if you need it. If you can't see it, I will provide it. And thank you very much for watching and listening to my speech.